The stars looked different from the bridge of the Zephyrian ship Harmony's voice. Captain Veltar had seen many worlds in his 40 years of diplomatic service, but today felt special. Today, they would make contact with a new species called humans. The Galactic Council had been watching these creatures for many years through their long-distance sensors. The humans lived around a yellow star they called Sol, on the third planet from their sun. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as the best diplomats. They had helped dozens of new species join the galactic community. Their ship was built for peace, not war. It had powerful computers that could learn any language, and databases full of information about thousands of different cultures. The Harmony's voice was beautiful, with smooth curves and gentle lights that showed their peaceful intentions. Veltar stood looking at the star map in front of him. The human solar system was still several days away at their current speed. His communication officer, a young female named Zira, was busy studying everything they knew about humans. She had spent months learning about their culture, their history, and their technology. "Captain," Zira said, looking up from her workstation, "the humans appear to be a typical developing species. They have basic nuclear technology and simple chemical rockets. Their largest space stations are maybe a few hundred meters long. They should be easy to integrate into the galactic community." Veltar nodded. This was what he expected. Most new species followed the same pattern. They started with simple technology, built small ships, and gradually learned to work with other worlds. The humans seemed no different from the hundreds of other species he had helped over the years. The Galactic Council had very specific rules for first contact. They always sent peaceful ships with no weapons. They approached slowly and carefully. They tried to learn the new species' languages and customs. Most importantly, they never showed advanced military technology that might scare the new species. Fear led to problems, and problems led to wars. Their technology level suggests they are ready for contact, Veltar continued, reading the reports. They have achieved basic spaceflight and have begun exploring their own solar system. They have sent simple probes to nearby planets. This is the perfect time to introduce them to the larger galactic community. The Zephyrian ship moved through space at a steady pace. They were not in a hurry. First contact was too important to rush. Every detail had to be perfect. The ship's computers worked constantly, analyzing human radio signals and television broadcasts. They were building a picture of human society, trying to understand what made these creatures unique. 3 days into their journey, something strange appeared on their sensors. The science officer, an old Zephyrian named Keth, called out from his station with confusion in his voice. "Captain, we are detecting an unusual energy signature in the outer part of the human solar system. It appears to be artificial, but the size readings cannot be correct." Veltar walked over to look at the sensor display. The numbers seemed wrong. The computer was showing something over 15 kilometers long, moving in the asteroid belt between the planets Mars and Jupiter. That was impossible. No species built structures that large in space. The cost would be enormous, and there would be no practical reason for it. "Run a full diagnostic on the sensor array," Veltar ordered. "These readings must be incorrect. Perhaps we are detecting multiple smaller objects grouped together, or maybe some kind of natural phenomenon." Keth worked for several hours, checking and rechecking every system. The sensors were working perfectly. The energy signature was real, and it was definitely artificial. Whatever the humans had built out there, it was larger than anything in the Galactic Council's databases. "Captain," Keth said slowly, "I have confirmed the readings. There is an artificial structure in the human solar system that measures 15.3 kilometers in length. The energy output suggests massive fusion reactors, multiple power cores, and what appears to be advanced defensive systems." The bridge fell silent. This changed everything. If humans could build structures this large, they were far more advanced than anyone had realized. The Galactic Council's assessment was completely wrong. These were not primitive beings taking their first steps into space. They had technology that rivaled or exceeded most galactic civilizations. Veltar felt a cold fear growing in his chest. The Harmony's voice was a diplomatic ship with no weapons and light shields. If the humans were hostile, his crew would have no way to defend themselves. But it was too late to turn back now. They had already sent their greeting messages announcing their peaceful intentions. The humans knew they were coming. "Continue monitoring that signature," Veltar ordered. "Try to learn everything you can about its capabilities. and send an urgent message to the Galactic Council. They need to know that our intelligence about the humans was completely wrong. The message to the Galactic Council would take weeks to reach them due to the vast distances involved. By then, the first contact would be complete, for better or worse. Veltar had to proceed with only his own judgment and the hope that the humans were as peaceful as his ship. As they drew closer to the Sol system, more details became clear. The massive structure was definitely a ship, and it was moving, slowly, carefully, but definitely under power. It had begun changing course, moving from the outer asteroid belt toward the inner planets, toward Earth, toward them. The ship's computer systems worked frantically to analyze what they were seeing. The fusion drive signatures were unlike anything in their databases. The power output was enormous, suggesting engines that could accelerate something of that size to significant fractions of light speed. The defensive readings showed energy shields that could protect against solar radiation and weapons that could threaten planets. "Captain," Zira said, her voice barely steady, "I am detecting weapon systems on that vessel." The energy signatures suggest plasma cannons, missile launchers, and defensive systems. "The scale is unprecedented." Veltar stared at the display, trying to process what he was seeing. The human ship was not just large, it was a warship. A warship bigger than some space stations, armed with enough firepower to threaten entire fleets. This was supposed to be a simple diplomatic mission to welcome a new species into the galactic community. Instead, they were facing a military force beyond anything they had imagined possible. The worst part was that they were committed now. They could not turn back without causing an interstellar incident. The humans had detected their ship and were responding. Soon, they would be close enough for direct communication. Veltar had to find a way to complete his mission without getting his crew killed or starting a war with a species that appeared capable of conquering half the galaxy. He looked around at his crew, seeing the same fear and confusion in their eyes that he felt in his heart. They had trained for peaceful first contact with primitive species. They had not trained for this. None of them had. The Galactic Council's protocols did not cover what to do when the new species turned out to be more powerful than anyone had thought possible. The Harmony's voice continued toward its rendezvous with the human ship, carrying a diplomatic crew into the unknown, hoping that their peaceful intentions would be enough to prevent disaster. Behind them, their urgent message to the Galactic Council traveled slowly through space, carrying news that would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare, technology, and the balance of power among the stars. Deep in the asteroid belt, the massive ship called UES Prometheus had been waiting for almost 300 years. It floated silent and dark among the rocks and ice, looking like just another large asteroid to anyone who did not look too closely. But the Prometheus was far from dead. Deep inside its armored hull, thousands of systems hummed quietly, keeping watch over the solar system and waiting for the day when humanity might need them. Admiral Sarah Chen opened her eyes for the first time in 103 years. The cryogenic sleep chamber around her was warm and comfortable, but her mind was sharp and alert. The ship's artificial intelligence had awakened her because something important was happening. As the fog of long sleep cleared from her thoughts, she began to remember why she was here. The Prometheus was humanity's greatest achievement and its darkest secret. Built during the expansion wars 3 centuries ago, it represented everything humans had learned about warfare, engineering, and survival. The ship was over 15 kilometers long and housed a crew of 50,000 people, though most of them slept in cryogenic chambers while the ship waited for orders. Admiral Chen, the ship's AI, spoke with a calm, familiar voice. "We have detected an alien vessel approaching the solar system. This appears to be our first contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. All systems are standing by for your orders." Sarah sat up slowly, her body adjusting to being awake after so long. Around her, other cryogenic chambers were opening as key personnel began to wake up. The bridge crew, department heads, and senior officers all had to be brought online before they could make any decisions about how to handle this situation. "Show me what we are dealing with," Sarah said, stepping out of her chamber and moving toward the command center. Her uniform was waiting for her, exactly as she had left it over a century ago. The ship had maintained everything perfectly while she slept. The main display showed a sleek alien vessel moving through space toward Earth. It was much smaller than the Prometheus, maybe 800 meters long, with smooth curves and no obvious weapons. The ship's computers had been analyzing its communications for days, slowly learning the alien language and trying to understand their intentions. They call themselves Zephyrians, the AI explained. Their communications suggest peaceful intent. They appear to be diplomats from some kind of galactic government that wants to make contact with humanity. However, Admiral, their technology level is concerning. Sarah studied the readings carefully. The alien ship was advanced but not beyond human understanding. Its engines were efficient, its computers were powerful, and its construction was elegant. But it was not a warship. There were no weapon signatures, no heavy armor, no defensive systems beyond basic shields. They seem to think we are a primitive species, Sarah realized. Their communications patterns suggest they expect to find humans with crude technology and simple space capabilities. This was both good and bad news. Good because it meant the aliens were not coming to conquer Earth. Bad because it meant they had no idea what they were really dealing with. The Prometheus alone carried enough firepower to destroy every major installation in a solar system. If the aliens thought humans were primitive, they might make dangerous mistakes. Commander Martinez, the ship's executive officer, emerged from his own cryogenic chamber and joined Sarah at the command center. He had been her second in command for 2 centuries, and she trusted his judgment completely. "What are your thoughts, Commander?" Sarah asked. Martinez studied the alien ship for several minutes before answering. "They are either very confident or very naive, Admiral. To approach an unknown species with such a lightly armed vessel suggests they either have massive backup we cannot detect, or they seriously underestimated what they might find here." Sarah nodded. This was exactly what she had been thinking. The Zephyrians were approaching Earth as if they were greeting children with toys, not a species that had built weapons capable of cracking planets. The disconnect between their assumptions and reality could lead to serious problems. "Begin bringing the ship to full operational status," Sarah ordered. "I want all departments online within 12 hours. Begin waking essential personnel, but keep the majority of the crew in cryogenic sleep for now. We need to be ready for anything, but we do not want to appear overly aggressive." The Prometheus began to wake up around them. Lights came on in corridors that had been dark for decades. Massive fusion reactors deep in the ship's heart began producing full power for the first time in years. Weapon systems ran diagnostic checks, shield generators tested their field integrity, and the ship's enormous engines prepared for potential movement. Dr. Elizabeth Wong, the chief science officer, arrived at the command center still adjusting to being awake after her long sleep. She had been studying the alien communications and had important information to share. "Admiral, I have been analyzing their language and cultural patterns," she said. "The Zephyrians appear to come from a galactic civilization that has made contact with hundreds of different species. They have very established protocols for first contact situations. The problem is that all their protocols assume they are dealing with less advanced civilizations." Sarah felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. "What exactly does that mean for us, Doctor?" "It means they are going to treat us like children who need guidance to join the adult galactic community," Dr. Wong explained. "Their communications suggest they expect to teach us about advanced technology, help us develop better space travel, and gradually integrate us into their political structure. They have no idea that we might already have technology equal to or better than theirs. This was exactly the kind of situation that could lead to war. If the aliens tried to treat humanity like a primitive species that needed their guidance, it would not end well. Humans had never responded positively to condescension, especially when it came from outsiders who presumed to judge their capabilities. "There is something else, Admiral," Dr. Wong continued. "Based on their communication patterns and approach vectors, I believe they have no idea the Prometheus exists. Their sensors appear to be focused on Earth and the inner planets. They may not have detected us yet." Sarah considered this carefully. The Prometheus had been built to be stealthy when needed. Its outer hull could absorb most sensor sweeps, and its position in the asteroid belt provided natural camouflage. If the aliens had not seen them yet, humanity had an advantage in these first contact negotiations. "Recommendations?" Sarah asked her senior staff. Commander Martinez spoke first. "We need to make contact before they reach Earth. If they arrive at our homeworld without meeting us first, they might be disappointed by what they find. Better to control the first impression we make," Dr. Wong agreed. "I recommend we approach them carefully and begin communications while we are still far from Earth." We can present ourselves as Earth's representatives without revealing the full extent of our capabilities. At least until we understand their true intentions. Sarah made her decision. Begin moving the Prometheus toward an intercept course with the alien vessel. Bring us to yellow alert, but keep all weapons powered down. We are going to make first contact, but we are going to do it on our terms, not theirs. The enormous ship began to move for the first time in decades. Its massive engines created brief stars in the darkness of space as the Prometheus changed course toward its rendezvous with the alien diplomats. Around the ship, automated systems began preparing for humanity's first encounter with aliens, hoping it would be peaceful but ready for war if necessary. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's most powerful warship and wondered what the next few days would bring. The aliens thought they were coming to meet a primitive species that needed their guidance. Instead, they were about to encounter a civilization that had turned warfare into an art form and had built weapons that could threaten stars themselves. Captain Veltar stood frozen on the bridge of the Harmony's voice, staring at sensor readings that made no sense. The human vessel approaching them was not just large, it was impossible. His science officer Keth had run the diagnostics 17 times, and every scan confirmed the same terrifying results. The human ship was over 15 kilometers long, massed more than most space stations, and carried enough firepower to threaten entire star systems. "Captain," Keth said, his voice shaking slightly, "I am reading multiple fusion reactors, each one larger than our main power plant. The energy signature suggests they could accelerate that entire mass to significant fractions of light speed. The defensive readings show shield generators that could deflect solar radiation. The weapons," he paused, checking his readings again. "The weapons could crack moons." Zira, the communications officer, looked up from her station with wide eyes. "Sir, I am receiving communications from the human vessel. They are identifying themselves as the UES Prometheus, a diplomatic escort ship representing Earth. They say they are pleased to meet us and want to establish peaceful relations." Veltar felt his legs go weak. A diplomatic escort ship? If this monster was what humans considered appropriate for diplomatic missions, what did their actual military look like? He tried to imagine fleets of these titans moving through space, each one capable of conquering entire star systems single-handedly. "Send a response," Veltar managed to say. "Tell them we are honored to meet them and that we come in peace representing the Galactic Council. Request permission to approach for formal first contact protocols." As Zira transmitted the message, Veltar called an emergency meeting with his senior staff. They gathered in the small conference room adjacent to the bridge, their faces showing the same shock and confusion he felt. "This changes everything," Veltar said, looking around the table. "Our entire assessment of human civilization was wrong. They are not a primitive species taking their first steps into space. They have technology that exceeds anything in our databases." Dr. Thane, the expedition's xenobiologist, shook his head in disbelief. The resource requirements to build something like that should have bankrupted their entire civilization. The engineering challenges alone should have taken centuries to solve. How did they achieve this level of technology so quickly? "Maybe they did not do it quickly," suggested Lieutenant Mora, the ship's tactical officer. "Maybe we missed something in our long-range observations. Maybe they have been hiding their true capabilities deliberately." The thought sent chills through everyone present. If humans had been deliberately concealing their technological level, it suggested a species with advanced understanding of galactic politics and military strategy. They might have been preparing for contact for decades, studying the galaxy and planning their approach carefully. "There is another possibility," Keth said quietly. "What if this is not their most advanced ship? What if this really is just a diplomatic escort, and they have even larger vessels for military purposes?" The room fell completely silent. The idea was almost too terrifying to consider. If the Prometheus was humanity's equivalent of a diplomatic courier ship, what did their actual battleships look like? How many of these titans did they possess? Could they have entire fleets of such vessels hidden throughout their solar system? Captain Veltar's communication device chirped with an incoming message from the Galactic Council. The message had been sent weeks ago, before they had discovered the true nature of human technology. It contained standard first contact protocols, advice for dealing with primitive species, and authorization to begin integration procedures. "Should I respond to the Council?" Zira asked. Veltar considered this carefully. Any message he sent would take weeks to reach the Council, and their response would take weeks to return. By then, the first contact would be complete. He was on his own, facing a situation that no Galactic Council protocol had ever anticipated. Send an emergency message, he decided. Tell them that our intelligence about human capabilities was completely incorrect. Inform them that we are dealing with a species that possesses military technology beyond anything in our databases. Request immediate guidance, but make it clear that we will have to proceed without their input. As the message was prepared and sent, the Harmony's voice continued toward its rendezvous with the Prometheus. On the main screen, the human ship grew larger and more intimidating with each passing hour. What had initially appeared as a simple geometric shape began to reveal incredible complexity. The hull was covered with sensor arrays, weapon mounts, shuttle bays, and defensive installations. Entire sections of the ship appeared to be dedicated to manufacturing, suggesting it could build and repair other vessels while operating far from any base. "Captain," Keth called out, "I am detecting multiple smaller vessels launching from the human ship. They appear to be escort fighters or patrol craft." Veltar looked at the tactical display and felt his heart sink. The smaller human vessels were each the size of Zephyrian corvettes, heavily armed and obviously designed for combat. If humans use ships this size for routine patrols around their diplomatic vessels, their military hierarchy was completely beyond galactic norms. "How many are launching?" he asked. 12 so far, sir. But the Prometheus has launch bays that could deploy hundreds of such craft. They are taking formation around their main vessel in what appears to be a standard escort pattern. The display of military precision was both impressive and terrifying. The human escort fighters moved with perfect coordination, their formations suggesting advanced training and experienced crews. These were not the fumbling efforts of a species new to space warfare. They moved like veterans who had been fighting in space for centuries. A new communication came from the Prometheus. Admiral Sarah Chen introduced herself as the commanding officer and formally welcomed the Zephyrian delegation to the Sol system. Her voice was calm and professional, but there was something in her tone that suggested vast experience and absolute confidence in her abilities. "Captain Veltar," Admiral Chen said, "we understand this is your first visit to our system. We would be honored to provide you with an escort to Earth, where you can meet with our planetary governments. The Prometheus will accompany you to ensure your safety during the journey." The offer was clearly meant to be courteous, but Veltar understood the underlying message. The humans were telling him that their massive warship would be watching his every move until he left their territory. It was diplomatic immunity backed by overwhelming military force. "We accept your gracious offer, Admiral Chen," Veltar replied, hoping his voice did not betray his nervousness. "We look forward to learning more about your remarkable civilization." As the two ships began moving together toward Earth, Veltar wondered what other surprises humanity might have in store. If their diplomatic escort ship was this impressive, what would they find when they reached the human homeworld? How many more of these titans were hidden in the outer system? And most importantly, what did humanity really want from the galaxy? The Harmony's voice, dwarfed by its massive escort, continued toward Earth carrying a diplomatic team that had discovered they were not greeting a new species joining the galactic community. Instead, they were meeting a civilization that might be powerful enough to reshape the entire balance of power among the stars. Captain Veltar could only hope that humanity's intentions were as peaceful as they claimed, because if they were not, the galaxy was about to face a threat unlike anything it had ever seen. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the main conference room of the Prometheus, watching as the Zephyrian shuttle approached their docking bay. The alien vessel was small and elegant, designed for diplomatic purposes rather than military action. She could not help but notice how different their approaches to first contact were. The Zephyrians came in a beautiful ship built for peace, while humanity had sent its largest warship as a diplomatic escort. "Admiral," Commander Martinez said from beside her, "the alien delegation is requesting permission to come aboard for a cultural exchange tour. Captain Veltar specifically asked to see our ship's facilities to better understand human technology and society." Sarah nodded. This was exactly what she had expected. The aliens were clearly trying to assess humanity's true capabilities, probably because their sensors had told them things that contradicted everything they thought they knew about human civilization. A tour of the Prometheus would certainly give them plenty to think about. Grant their request, Sarah decided, but make sure they understand that this is a working military vessel. We are not hiding anything from them, but they need to understand what they are seeing. Dr. Wong, I want you to accompany the tour and explain our technology in terms they can understand. Dr. Elizabeth Wong, the Chief Science Officer, had spent the past 2 days studying Zephyrian language and culture through their communications. She had a gift for explaining complex concepts in simple terms, which would be essential for this meeting. The aliens seemed to assume that humans were primitive, and learning otherwise might be shocking for them. The Zephyrian delegation consisted of 4 individuals, led by Captain Veltar. They were humanoid but clearly alien, with pale blue skin and large eyes that suggested they had evolved on a world with less light than Earth. They wore simple clothing that appeared to be both functional and ceremonial, probably designed to make a good first impression during diplomatic contacts. "Welcome aboard the UES Prometheus," Sarah said as the aliens stepped into the docking bay. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding officer of this vessel. We are honored to host the first official meeting between our species." Captain Veltar bowed formally. "The honor is ours, Admiral Chen. We represent the Galactic Council, an organization of civilized worlds dedicated to peace and cooperation among the stars. We have come to welcome humanity to the galactic community and to begin the process of cultural and technological exchange." Sarah smiled politely, though she noticed the way Veltar's eyes kept moving around the docking bay, taking in details of the massive space and the military equipment visible everywhere. The Prometheus had been built for war, and it showed. Even the docking bay was armored and equipped with defensive systems. "We would be pleased to show you our ship," Sarah said, "though I should warn you that the Prometheus is a military vessel. What you will see represents our approach to deep space operations and system defense. Please feel free to ask questions about anything that interests you." The tour began in the ship's main corridors, which were wide enough for large vehicles to move through and tall enough to make even humans feel small. The Zephyrians walked in silence, clearly overwhelmed by the scale of everything around them. The corridor stretched for kilometers in both directions, lined with doors leading to thousands of different compartments and facilities. "How many people serve aboard this ship?" asked Dr. Thane, the Zephyrian xenobiologist. "Our full crew complement is 50,000 personnel," Dr. Wong replied casually, "though most of them are currently in cryogenic sleep. We only wake the crew we need for active operations. For this diplomatic mission, we have about 5,000 people awake and on duty." The aliens exchanged glances that Sarah could not read, but their body language suggested shock. 5,000 active crew members was apparently more than they had expected. The fact that 45,000 more people were sleeping somewhere in the ship's vast interior clearly added to their concerns. The next stop was one of the manufacturing bays, where automated systems could build everything from small components to entire shuttlecraft. The bay was the size of a large building, filled with machines and robots working on various projects. Several partially completed fighters were visible, along with the raw materials needed to build much larger vessels. "This is where we maintain and replace our equipment during long deployments," Dr. Wong explained. "The Prometheus is designed to operate independently for extended periods, so we need to be able to manufacture whatever we might need." Lieutenant Mora, the Zephyrian tactical officer, stared at the manufacturing systems with obvious concern. "You can build warships inside your warship?" "Small ones, yes," Dr. Wong confirmed. "Fighters, shuttles, patrol craft, and various support vessels. For larger ships, we would need proper shipyard facilities. But for routine operations, this manufacturing capability allows us to remain self-sufficient." The tour continued through the ship's hydroponic gardens, which were vast green spaces designed to provide food and recreation for the crew during long voyages. The gardens were beautiful, with trees and grass and flowing water, but they also served practical purposes. The Zephyrians seemed amazed that humans had built entire ecosystems inside their warship. "These gardens can feed how many people?" Captain Veltar asked. "The full crew complement of 50,000 indefinitely," Dr. Wong replied. "We also have traditional food storage and preparation facilities, but the gardens provide fresh food and help maintain air quality throughout the ship. They are quite pleasant for recreation as well." Sarah watched the aliens carefully as they absorbed this information. They were clearly struggling to understand the implications of what they were seeing. The Prometheus was not just a warship, it was a mobile city capable of supporting a large population for years without resupply. Combined with its manufacturing capabilities, The ship could operate independently in ways that most galactic civilizations probably never considered. The tour's most dramatic moment came when they reached one of the main weapon control centers. The room was filled with displays showing the ship's various armament systems, including the massive plasma cannons that could engage targets at interplanetary distances. Dr. Wong carefully explained how the weapons worked, emphasizing their defensive purposes while making it clear that the Prometheus could threaten any target in a solar system. These weapons are designed to protect Earth and our other colonies from external threats, Dr. Wong said diplomatically. We hope never to use them in anger, but we believe in being prepared for any possibility. The Zephyrians stared at weapon displays that showed enough firepower to devastate planets. Their faces showed a mixture of fear and awe that Sarah found both satisfying and concerning. She wanted the aliens to respect humanity's capabilities, but she did not want them to think humans were aggressive warmongers. Do you have many ships like this one? Captain Veltar asked carefully. Sarah decided to answer honestly, though she chose her words carefully. The Prometheus is our primary deep space operations vessel. We have other ships with different capabilities, but this is our most advanced long-range platform. We built it during a period when we expected to encounter hostile civilizations as we expanded into space. This was technically true, though it left out important details. Humanity had built only one Titan-class dreadnought because they had bankrupted themselves doing so. The Prometheus represented their entire strategic reserve, not one ship among many. But the aliens did not need to know that, especially when they were clearly already intimidated by what they had seen. The tour concluded in the ship's main conference room, where Admiral Chen formally invited the Zephyrians to share information about the galactic community. She was careful to present humanity as interested in peaceful cooperation, while making it clear that they would join the galaxy as equals, not as junior partners needing guidance. We look forward to learning about galactic civilization, Sarah said, and we hope to contribute our own knowledge and capabilities to the common good. Humanity has much to offer the galaxy, just as we have much to learn from species like yourselves. Captain Veltar nodded slowly, though his expression suggested he was still processing everything he had seen. Admiral Chen, your ship and your civilization are far more advanced than our initial observations suggested. This will require significant adjustments to our first contact protocols. Sarah smiled. We understand that our capabilities might be surprising. We have had to develop advanced technology to survive and thrive in our region of space. We hope this will not complicate our diplomatic relations. But we wanted you to understand what humanity can bring to any partnership with the galactic community. As the Zephyrian delegation prepared to return to their own ship, Sarah wondered what they would report to their galactic council. The tour had been designed to demonstrate human capabilities without being threatening, but she suspected the message the aliens had received was that humanity was far more dangerous than anyone had realized. 3 weeks after the Zephyrian delegation returned to their ship, the galaxy began to change. Captain Veltar's report to the Galactic Council had spread through official channels, but footage from their tour of the Prometheus had somehow leaked beyond secure networks. Every species with access to galactic communications was watching. Videos of human weapons that could crack, moons and manufacturing facilities that could build fleets of warships in the central chambers of the Galactic Council on the world of Nexus Prime. Emergency sessions ran day and night as representatives from hundreds of species tried to understand what humanity meant for the balance of power. The council chambers, usually filled with calm diplomatic discussions, now echoed with heated arguments about threat assessments and defensive strategies. Councillor Reth, a senior member from the Altarian Republic, stood before the assembled delegates with Veltar's report displayed behind him. The evidence is clear, he announced to the packed chambers. We have discovered a species that possesses military technology beyond anything in our databases. A single human vessel carries more firepower than most of our battle fleets. The reaction was immediate and intense. Representatives from military species like the Corvan Empire demanded immediate fleet mobilization. Peaceful species like the Madoran Collective called for diplomatic solutions. Economic powerhouses like the Trade Federation calculated the costs of potential conflicts and found the numbers terrifying. The humans claim this vessel is for diplomatic escort duties, Reth continued, his voice carrying across the worried murmur of hundreds of delegates. If this represents their standard for diplomatic missions, We can only imagine what their actual military forces must be like. On the screens throughout the chamber, footage played showing the vast corridors of the Prometheus, its massive weapon systems, and its incredible manufacturing capabilities. The tour that Admiral Chen had intended as a demonstration of human openness had instead become the most important intelligence briefing in galactic history. Ambassador Kree from the Hegemony of Worlds raised a tentacle to speak. Has anyone confirmed how many such vessels the humans possess? Do we know the size of their fleet? Their industrial capacity? Counselor Reth shook his head grimly. The human admiral was careful not to reveal specific numbers. She spoke of other ships with different capabilities and mentioned that the Prometheus was built during a period of expansion. This suggests they may have multiple vessels of similar capability, possibly an entire fleet of these titans. The truth was actually quite different, but the galaxy had no way of knowing that. Humanity possessed exactly one Titan-class dreadnought, built at enormous cost over decades of effort. The Prometheus represented their entire strategic reserve, their ultimate deterrent against threats they had imagined but never encountered. Admiral Chen's careful wording had been designed to avoid revealing weakness, but it had accidentally convinced the galaxy that humanity possessed a fleet of superweapons. In the Corvan Empire's military headquarters, Fleet Commander Vex studied tactical analyses that all reached the same conclusion. Direct confrontation with humanity would result in catastrophic losses. The Corvan fleet consisted of fast, heavily armed cruisers designed to overwhelm enemies through superior numbers and firepower. Against something like the Prometheus, their entire fleet might not be enough. Run the simulation again, Vex ordered his tactical officers. Use different scenarios, different approaches, different weapon combinations. The results were always the same. Even if the Corvans could mass their entire fleet against a single human vessel, the projected casualties were unacceptable. The human ship's defensive capabilities appeared able to withstand sustained bombardment from multiple directions, while its own weapons could destroy Corvan cruisers with single hits. Similar conclusions were being reached throughout the galaxy. The Threnody War Council, famous for their aggressive expansion policies, quietly canceled planned invasions and began reinforcing their border defenses. The merchant princes of Zeta Reticuli, who controlled much of the galaxy's trade networks, started calculating the economic benefits of peaceful cooperation with humanity rather than the costs of potential conflicts. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Chen was completely unaware that she had accidentally conquered the galaxy through intimidation. She filed routine reports about successful first contact with alien diplomats, noting that the Zephyrians seemed peaceful and interested in establishing diplomatic relations. Her recommendation was to proceed with cultural exchanges and begin the process of joining the galactic community as equal partners. The human government was pleased with the results. First contact had gone smoothly, with no incidents or misunderstandings. The aliens seemed friendly and technologically advanced, offering opportunities for trade and cultural exchange that could benefit both species. Plans were made for follow-up diplomatic missions and eventual formal treaties. Dr. Wong submitted her analysis of Zephyrian technology and culture, noting that their civilization appeared to be part of a larger galactic community, with advanced scientific knowledge and peaceful intentions. She recommended continued cooperation and suggested that humanity could learn much from galactic civilization, while also contributing their own discoveries and innovations. None of the human reports mentioned military intimidation or strategic advantages because, from humanity's perspective, they had simply been honest about their capabilities during a friendly diplomatic encounter. The Prometheus was their diplomatic escort ship because it was the only ship they had capable of deep space operations on the scale required for first contact. Admiral Chen had been forthright about its capabilities because she believed in honest dealing with potential allies. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the emergency sessions continued as species after species reported their conclusions about humanity's military capabilities. The consensus was clear. Humanity represented a potential threat that no individual species could handle alone. However, they also represented an opportunity if they could be integrated peacefully into the galactic community. The humans have demonstrated advanced technology and overwhelming military capability, Counselor Reth summarized after days of debate. However, they have also shown diplomatic restraint and expressed interest in peaceful cooperation. I propose that we accept their request to join the galactic community, but as full members with voting rights and defensive guarantees, not as junior partners requiring guidance. The vote was unanimous. Every species in the Galactic Council agreed that humanity should be welcomed as equals, with full membership rights and responsibilities. This was unprecedented for a newly contacted species, but the circumstances were unique. Never before had first contact revealed a civilization with the apparent capability to threaten the entire galactic balance of power. The formal invitation was transmitted to Earth with the highest diplomatic priority. Humanity was invited to send representatives to Nexus Prime to take their place in the galactic community as full members of the Galactic Council. The invitation emphasized mutual respect, peaceful cooperation, and shared responsibility for galactic security and prosperity. When Admiral Chen received notification of the invitation, she was pleased but not surprised. The Zephyrians had seemed friendly and reasonable, and their Galactic Council appeared to be a sophisticated organization dedicated to peaceful cooperation among species. Humanity's application for membership had been accepted more quickly than expected, but that probably just reflected the efficiency of galactic bureaucracy. It seems our first contact mission was even more successful than we hoped, Admiral Chen reported to Earth Command. The aliens have invited us to join their galactic community as full members immediately. This suggests they were impressed by our technological capabilities and diplomatic professionalism. She was right, though not in the way she imagined. The galaxy had indeed been impressed by human capabilities, impressed enough to fundamentally alter the balance of power among the stars. Without firing a shot or making a single threat, humanity had become the most feared military force in galactic history, all through a simple diplomatic tour of their only superweapon. The Prometheus began its journey home to Earth, carrying Admiral Chen and her crew back to report their success. Behind them, the galaxy adapted to a new reality where the balance of power had shifted completely. Humanity had joined the galactic community not as students seeking guidance, but as the newest and potentially most powerful military force among the stars. The age of human dominance in galactic affairs had begun, though humans themselves remained completely unaware of what they had achieved through their accidental display of overwhelming force during history's most successful diplomatic mission.